Hello and welcome to Miniature Adventures. I'm Big Lee, and today I want to talk about enhancing your games, particularly solo games, by the use of battle soundtracks. So I'm probably not alone in having often played suitable period music while playing games at home, particularly solo games. Not everybody wants to hear music while they're playing, but I do. I tend to put a suitable soundtrack on when I'm playing solo games. Got a game about to go on here. And I'm sure I've said this before, I also have a tendency to make my own sound effects. I'm a bit of a child when it comes to that. Let's face it, I play with toy soldiers. I haven't really grown up. So, I may be 52, but I'm not above going pew pew with me when I'm playing with my little metal men on the games table. And maybe it's time I upgraded to something a little bit more sophisticated. Now, part of this draws from a role-playing game that I ran many years ago, probably over a decade ago actually. So as many of you will know, my hobby in wargaming sort of grew out of an very early age playing role-playing games. And I still play role-playing games, still play D&D and stuff like that, as well as tabletop war games. And there's a bit of a crossover there in that I staged a role-playing game, a fantasy role-playing game, set around a battle for a city. So there was an attack on a city walls, and a fight going on, and the characters that I was playing the game for were taking part. And I decided I wanted to sort of up the level a bit, because we had miniatures, we had a city wall and miniatures, and obviously the part of role playing is descriptive element, and I talked about narrative in more games before, but I really wanted to sort of like increase the tempo and add a little bit to the game. So I ended up writing cobbling together a soundtrack that would go with this role-playing game. So I used things like the sounds of arrows streaking, ballista and stones hitting walls, men crying and cheers and the sounds of combat. And I mashed it all together using some software, basically turned it into a loop soundtrack that I could play up and down the volume a little bit whenever I wanted. And when we got to that particular part of the game that involved the battle at the walls, I started to play it and up the sound, and it really added something. And all the players said it made a big difference to how they felt like they were there, sort of thing. And I don't see any reason why you can't do something very similar for your tabletop war games. Now, one of the other reasons why this recently came to mind is I rediscovered an episode of Callan on YouTube. I don't know what year it originally came out. The episode's called An Act of Kindness, and he basically is investigating somebody who's a war gamer, and they make some figures and they play some games. And I remember at one particular point when I saw this for the first time as a very young kid, they put on some music in the background, suitable Napoleonic, drums and pipes, that sort of thing. And I don't know, it just inspired my imagination as a young kid. And I don't see any reason why you can't do that. Now, as I said, I often play music, but one of the other things that I've seen used is the sounds of battle being used played at certain points in a game to enhance a particular set of scenario, a particular moment in a game. Now, obviously, when doing after action reports and turning them into a video, for instance, you may well want to add that sort of soundtrack to your video, but I don't see any reason why you can't do that when you're playing your solo game in your own home, whether that's on your dining room table or elsewhere. I mean, let's face it, your family are already probably looking at you with a funny eye anyway, so you might as well go whole hog and just add in the sound effects as well. You'll enjoy yourself, and they won't think any less of you because, let's face it, they already think you've got a strange hobby anyway. Now, there's lots of free to download audio software out there, but I found a really good one is Audacity. It's just the one that I've been using. Really good. It's easy to stitch different things together and turn them into a single MP3 or WAV file that you can then use. You can play through your computer or through your phone, or use to add to videos. So there's plenty of others. There's lots of other programs out there. Some you pay for, some you don't. But I mean, Audacity is a free download. Definitely worth having a look at. You may well have some audio software built into your computer already, and maybe you've never used it. So certainly there's options there, and you can often get sound files from various free sources online, which you can then mash together and alter how you see fit to make a track. Another idea is to do a little bit of recording when you go to living history events. You can take sound from that and use it for your own purposes. Obviously it depends on what's available, and if there's any background, you don't want commentary from a loudspeaker, for instance, in it, but you may well have the sounds of men clashing together and so on. The only difficulty I've found is when trying to do those sort of audio files, you really need to try and extricate yourself from the crowds, because there's always a really annoying child screaming or whining in the background, and you don't want that on your sound files. So if you can remove yourself from that, so you just get the sounds of the action going on, that's always a good one. But as I say, there's usually 3 examples online that you can download, and then you can merge them and turn them into a longer looped track that you can use for your games. So really, that's a very, very short video today. Just a suggestion there, something that I'm going to use more often, and certainly I will be doing when I do videoed battle reports, for instance. I'd love to hear from you. Do you remember that original Callan series, that particular episode? Do you use, as well as music, do you use sound effects when you play your games? Do your group like to have that going on in the background, or is it something that you only do as a solo gamer, if at all? I'd love to hear from you as always. Please leave your stories and your suggestions and your advice and ideas in the comments below, or over on my blog, Big Lee's Miniature Adventures. Well, I hope you found that very short video interesting, and as always, I'd ask you to like, subscribe and share if you did enjoy. So until next week, look after yourself, get in as many games as you can, and of course, keep rolling high.